Films are certainly a wonderful means of communicating a truth, an issue that's important. And a film I only thought about, and I hadn't thought about for years. Deacon Larry came to mind when Deacon Larry was reading the gospel of the woman who'd been ill for many years, and also a little girl. The film's called Wit. They used to show it in medical school in some places. Anybody seen Wit? W-I-T. It's also a stage play that was put on at MD Anderson. It's about a woman, maybe in her 50s. She's a teacher of literature in New England, and she has cancer. And she's being treated for this cancer and has been for a long time. Of course, she received the attention of the doctors, and she was on a special trial that was being studied. But she'd made a choice that she did not want to be resuscitated. She had a wonderful nurse who at times would just moisturize her hands and look after her hair. It's important, isn't it? She realized that she was a person, but sadly, the doctors went into action when the code went off. Is it code blue? It is, code blue. And they rush in with the machines, and she throws herself on them, and she's on the woman, and she said, no, she doesn't want this. She wanted her to die with dignity. Obviously, the doctors had good hearts, but they failed to recognize her wishes, that she'd been through so many treatments. She reached a point when he said, enough is enough. And that nurse, just moisturizing her hands, the power of touch. And we know that doctors, thank God, are called to the wonderful art of healing. But there is much power in the touch. You knew that the moment you met. Well, I knew you knew him before he came, but when you saw him face to face, do you remember that first time you held him? Do you remember the first time you held Rosalind? Words perhaps unable to describe that powerful communion, that powerful connection. One writer described Jesus as putting living out the words he spoke. So when he was busy doing what he was doing, preaching, he still was able to feel this woman just touch him. And he knew something happened. There was a connection between them that didn't need words, but he experienced through his love, his tenderness, and his compassion. And that is the God we meet in Jesus Christ, a tender-hearted, compassionate, merciful one, aware of this woman's misery, aware of her pain. And so we use words a lot, don't we? Well, you know I do. Every Sunday almost. If it isn't me, it's Larry. And of course that's important. But actions and physical gestures have an enormous role and importance. And sadly, we've kind of been denied those, haven't we? For the last year and a half. And we are, thankfully, because of the vaccine, we're able to risk just a little bit more being connected with one another, because that healing touch is so powerful, because it speaks more eloquently. What do we say in the face of death? When I first came to America, and I was at St. Vincent's down in the medical centre. The pastor, Monsignor Jumail, had been there 16 or 17 years, and during my first year he was seriously ill, and a little into my second year he died after a long battle with cancer himself. And on the morning his body came back into the church he had only just renovated 2 years before, there was just a few of us gathered round to bring his body back into the church. And there's a little ritual in the book about a priest coming back into the church that's his to be buried. And I couldn't quite get the words out. I could see them on the page, I knew what they meant, but I couldn't speak them. And there was a wonderful Jesuit, a friend of Monsignor's, standing beside me. And at one point, I could feel his hand on my back, and I stepped forward, and the words came out. So never forget the importance of touch. A touch that we need, not just when we're born and first come into the world, not just when we're 8 years old, but whether we're 80 years old. That touch is so precious, so important. And know that it's God's way of communicating with the creation that he loves, and a creation he never intended to die. Please like, subscribe, or comment below.